Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Solitaire Rose production. Proud result of prison labor.
Yeah, you've got ammonia. Still, right?
Actually, pneumonia is interesting. First of all, folks, I hope you settle down with your tasty beverage and your snacks of choice, because this almost promises to be our longest how would you say, sequential?
We are
episodic.
just like Raw. Raw says that they're the longest running episodic TV show in history. We're the longest running episodic comic book podcast in history.
But not only
289 episodes.
Are we going to be talking previews?
489 episodes.
Yeah, not only are we doing previews, which guarantees 2 hours of comically goodness, and we like to do them early because that way we're hoping if you hear something you're interested in, you go to your friendly local neighborhood comic store and say, hey, Crazy says that, and they'll kick you out right away. So just go in and say, hey, I want to put this on my list, or you got your previews with you so you can read along. But Cory and I haven't actually sat down physically for almost a month and done one of these. So we're going to talk previews, but we also have like a month worth of stuff that Cory and I have done that we want to share with you. So I was going to suggest, Cory, do you want to just do a quick monthly recap and then we'll jump into previews? Or do you just want to save it for our normal freaking and geeking and get on with the preview goodness?
Let's get on with the preview goodness. Now, I do want to point out that this is episode 489, and I always like to point this out even though nobody cares. We have now gone past Real Time with Bill Maher, which has 484 episodes, Law and Order Special Victims Unit, which has 478 episodes. You've Been Framed, a British show, which went 471 episodes. We are about to overtake Augie and the Cockroaches, a French children's show, and WWE Experience, which has 499 episodes. They are still in production, but we will soon overtake them. And I bet you didn't even know WWE Experience was still being made.
I know nothing about WWE. I am so totally removed from them.
Well, they're
no WWE for me.
They're still in the Thunderdome. And as Tina Turner said, don't you think it's time we all got beyond Thunderdome? Where would wrestling be if not for the Mad Max movies? Because, oh my gosh. They even had, on NXT, they had a Halloween Havoc where they brought back Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal. A direct steal from Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about previews, which has Blade Runner Origins on the cover, a comic that will be lucky if it makes it to 10 issues. And Radiant Black, a new Image book. Visionary Mighty Morphin Power Rangers writer Kyle Higgins teams up with Marcelo Costa and Becca Carey for a new Image Comics superhero epic out this February. And pitching it as, oh, this is by the guy who gave us Power Rangers, the comic. It doesn't appeal to me because I'm not a Power Rangers guy.
Where are you in the previews?
I'm looking at the cover.
Oh, I thought you were in it. See, I like looking at the covers and stuff, but usually I'm just like, forget that. Let's get into the meat. Although occasionally something will catch my attention. Radiant Black wasn't one of them.
I did have a dream about previews last night, Joe.
Uh-oh.
I dreamed that previews was over 1,000 pages, and Marvel and DC made up 995 of them. And it's like, wow, all the other books are 5 pages.
And you're like, oh, what a brilliant idea. Start with Fantastic Four #1 and do a Marvel replica every month of every book. I say that because we are constantly giving out $1 million ideas. You caught the latest one they stole blatantly from this here podcast?
What was that?
Do you remember when I said, hey, you know what they should do is they should bring Dr. Octopus from the second Raimi movie and have him be the guy that has the catalyst to bring all the Spider-Men together? Sure enough, they took it from us. With nearly a thanks, not even a complimentary copy.
Can't even get the New Mutants on Blu-ray through Amazon yet.
Too bad.
I don't understand that. There are times when you can pre-order movies through Amazon, but there are some like New Mutants. It's out at Target. It's out at everywhere. You go to Amazon, it's like, oh, nope, never heard of it.
New what?
Don't know what it is. One of them? You can buy it digitally.
Is that one of them Star Trek war thingies? Battlestar Orville?
But no, we're going to go through our previews here.
All right. So grab yourself a previews. This is number 387, December 20th. And
just think, Joe, we've had more episodes than there have been issues of previews.
How about St. Elsewhere? How many episodes of St. Elsewhere has there been?
Oh, that only went around 200 and some.
Okay, because my wife's been watching that over and over. I catch it occasionally, but I will watch the one where they go to Cheers. All right, since I go first, because that's how it should be, I'm going to point you out to page 49. Now, while you're busy doing that, I'm going to type in something. What we have here, speaking of reprints, is Cory, do you happen to have like $4,000 in your left pocket?
I do not.
How about $2,500 in your right?
Well, if I did, I sure wouldn't tell you, because you're handing out keys to my place.
Yeah, there is that. Well, if you were, for instance, a Savage Dragon fan, an Eric Larson fan, and you wanted to just see get a copy of his graphic fantasy #1 and 2, which were his first self-published and hardest to find Savage Dragon comics of all time. These were just basically fanzines that he did. So you could go onto the eBay and you could you could actually go bid yourself. Actually, you just buy it if you want, $2,500. Actually, the only one I see is #1. I don't even see a #2 on the eBays. Or for $10 a piece, well, I should say #1 is $10, #2 is $6. You could get yourself a facsimile edition of this here early and hard to find Savage Dragon comics. Very collectible if you're a Savage Dragon fan, and very impossible to find. Like I said, I only see 2 slabbed ones on the eBay, and I wasn't even aware of the #2 until Larson posted it here. So if this is your type of thing, check it out. I'll also point out across on page 48 a return of another early Image property, Area. This is a one-shot, Heavenly Creatures, originally published in 2000. Beautiful art, pretty good storyline as well, which always helps. And there you see some of the Offered Again stuff. So if you want to check out either some a creator in his crude origins, or perhaps writers and artists in their prime, here's a couple of properties that are coming back for fun. That I will definitely be picking up the graphic fantasies because I'm a Savage Dragon fan. The Area ones I do have already, but I just thought I'd put that out.
And I'm not the biggest Savage Dragon fan, but I thought his first appearance was in Megaton Comics. But these are before that. I'm
just looking. I can kind of look around here. because
Yeah, because
he
Megaton came
was
out in like 80,
Megaton was published.
85. No, 83. 83 was the
Megaton
first
was
issue.
published, whereas Graphic Fantasy was a fanzine.
Okay.
So, yeah, again, and Megaton is tough to find itself. So, yeah, this is just like if you and I got together into the adventures of what's Butch's name now? Bunkhouse.
Bunkhouse Butch.
Yeah, Bunkhouse. The Adventures of Bunkhouse Butch. Or better yet, you had those early issues of Crazy Comics that Justin, Butch, and Dave did, and then now they published an actual real comic book. So that's kind of what the difference is, which is why the graphic fantasies are probably nigh impossible, because he did that like with I think they just Xeroxed them.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, Megaton was actually a published comic.
I would go to page 52 for another original graphic novel, Write It in Blood, by Roy McConville, Joe Palmer, and Chris O'Halloran. Just on the eve of their retirement, two hitmen, Cosmo and Arthur Price, drive through the Texas countryside with the infamous Little Harkness in the trunk of their car. The brothers are meant to deliver Harkness to their boss, but matters become complicated when Arthur's recklessness jeopardizes Cosmo's retirement plans and puts a target on their back. I'm all about these crime novels, you know that.
Oh yeah.
And they give 3 pages that looks really good. This sounds like a really good premise. The art that they show really sold me on it. And of course, they have to pitch it. So they pitch it as Dead Eyes meets Pulp.
Yeah, always trying to get that comparison going.
Yeah.
I wonder if like you had a comic store and you used those type of blurbs, just either Xerox or just make a little Dead Eyes meets Pulp, like when blood comes out, just to kind of, if that would actually help sales or not.
What helps in bookstores is if you like this, then try this.
Yeah.
And that's, we were talking about Amazon a little earlier. That's Amazon's whole thing. If I go to Amazon and look at, let's say I'm looking for a new mandala coloring book. If you like this one, you'll like these, and it lists 30 below. Or if I'm looking at an omnibus for She-Hulk, they'll have a bunch of stuff with She-Hulk, a bunch of stuff by Dan Slott, and a bunch of stuff. People who bought that also bought this. So that's kind of how we sell things now.
I could say, like, if you like X-Files, The Matrix, Men in Black, John Carpenter, Stephen King, and 1970 conspiracy thrillers, you should go to page 57 and pick up the Department of Truth, Volume 1, The End of the World trade paperback, which is something I believe you and I have raved about already just by reading the comic books. I decided not to buy the comics. I'm just going to buy this in graphic novel form. And the best part about it, it's got a low introductory price of $9.99. That I paid $3.99 for number 1 of the comic. If you'd have bought 1 through 5, you'd have paid more than you will buying this trade, and it is so good. I'll just read the blurb here. Cole Turner has studied conspiracy theories all his life, but he isn't prepared for what happened when he discovers that all of them are true. From the JFK assassination to the flat earth theory and reptilian shapeshifters, one organization has been covering up these for generations. Discover the deep, dark secret behind the Department of Truth. Yeah, number 1 blew me away. For various reasons, I never got the other ones. I just figured, you know what, I'm going to buy this one as trade because this one's fun and it's going to be a lot worth rereading.
On the next page, page 58, is a reprint of Scene of the Crime, which was the first crime comic by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. Michael Lark worked on it. It won an Eisner back in 2000 when it was originally printed through Vertigo, but it fell out of print soon after. They then went from this to working on both Batman and the Gotham PD. series, and then over to Daredevil, and so on and so on. If you've not read this, if you haven't picked this up, this was kind of their first in the crime noir that they do now. Highly recommended, especially if you haven't read it before. And the rest of Image, they are doing some compendiums and complete series. The Spawn compendium is getting reprinted. I think it reprints the first 50 issues of Spawn.
So are you telling me you advocate reprinting older works?
Of course. I think that books like this should stay in print.
Then you should jump back to page 50, because here's your latest batch of Image Firsts, which I love because there's 9 new issues to the program. Plus, you can actually try out an issue for $1, and if you like it, pick up them back issues, or just go ahead and pick up the graphic novel. Just on page 50, 51, a couple I just recommend: Die, Mercy, Undiscovered Country, Monstrous, Paper Girls, Invincible, Oblivion Song, Saga, Snot Girl, Deadly Class, Ice Cream Man. Hell, buy them all. They're only $1. And that's it for me.
Yeah, everything else is continuation of the series that they are doing. One thing I like about Image, they put all the new stuff in the front.
Yeah.
So that leads us to Dark Horse.
I've got one thing in Dark Horse.
One thing.
I know. Pop over to page 87. Unfinished Business by Paul Levitz and Simon Fraser. A priest, a minister, and a rabbi walk into a bar, except they're all dead. Not a zombie apocalypse, sorry, Walking Dead fans, but a bit of unfinished business. See how they worked the name of the graphic novel in there? Basically, heaven needs to help the departed clerics to address, if they can, this unfinished business. But what awaits them if they succeed? Life, afterlife, oblivion, and it's an original graphic novel. So $9.99, 88 pages, a little sparse, but it's a hardcover, and I'll give Paul Levitz my hard-earned dough. May do.
On page 93, there's a book that I'm recommending, and one I want to point out. So on the first half of the page is Shiloh and Cowboy, which is Jeff Darrow doing a collection of his latest comic. And it's Jeff Darrow. The guy does very little comic work, but the stuff he does is utterly mind-blowing. He did Hardboiled and what was it? The robot comic he did with Frank Miller that was so good. His art is amazing, just utterly amazing. And he got picked up by movies early on, so he's making so much more money. But every so often he comes back and does a comic. And then the next page is the EC Archives Shock Illustrated. Shock Illustrated, after the Comics Code came in and William Gaines couldn't get his stuff distributed anymore, he had already started Mad as a magazine, and it was doing real well. So he thought, well, I'll take my other stuff and turn them into magazines. There were 2 strikes against him. First was he didn't do them as comics. He did them as illustrated short stories. And the short stories were not all that well written. And the second was Mad already had a name and was a very popular comic before it became a magazine. These were all new, and distributors didn't quite know what to do with them. They were on cheap pulpy paper, and magazines were moving over to be slick magazines. And then you had American distribution fall apart. So there were 3 issues. The third was actually stapled together because they printed it, but they didn't even have enough money to bind it, let alone send it to the distributors. So they stapled up around 200 copies and gave them away. And then there's work for the 4th issue that was stopped. And it's $40 for that book. However, Joe, turn to page 268. You'll see the complete Pictofiction set, which has Crime Illustrated, Shock Illustrated, Terror Illustrated, and Confessions Illustrated in larger size, big books with all of the same stuff, and you get all 4 of them in a slipcase for $150. So I hate to say it, but skip buying this one volume. That's actually going to be printed at the more like comic size, and go for the one that's printed at the larger size, almost a little bigger than magazine size. For $150, you get the whole thing. So that's Cory's recommendation on your EC for this time, and it looks like they are Dark Horse is almost done reprinting all the EC stuff. I think they've just got Tales of Terror, Crime Illustrated, and Confessions Illustrated. Confessions Illustrated was such a mess. We'll get to that when they reprint that. And for me, that was it from Dark Horse. Anything else?
That's pretty much it. Dare we delve into DC?
Sure, I have it pulled up right here. They are still in their future state.
Which I've had some really weird conversations with people over this.
People do not understand what's going on with this at all.
No. I've told people, future state is basically just DC dumping stuff. It's like if Marvel decided to use all the fill-in issues and just put them out there. It doesn't mean anything, although there is a Batman issue I saw in the Facebooks that's gone nuts from the 80s because it's like the first appearance of Tim Fox, who apparently is one of these future slate Batman.
Yeah.
But see, this is basically product for an event that's not happening. And people they're like, oh, this is so cool. This is so cool. And I'm like, well, don't get too hyped up because DC's not doing anything with it. They may, but then again, it might just be a big convergence crapola where here's all this great idea. And when it comes out, it's like, wow, that's over $100 I'm never going to get back.
See, I'm hearing the opposite. Maybe it's because I'm in the groups of older readers, but they're like, this is crap. I can't believe DC's doing this. Why are they destroying their universe? And when you tell them it's for 2 months, well, they'll probably keep it going because, they this is what they would have done if Dan DiDio was still in charge. And when I look through, I see the creative names. They bring a lot of outside talent in. Some people who've won Oscars for writing, some people who've won Emmys for writing. People who've worked on a lot of the DC animated movies and things like that. But it's tangent.
May I quote Meatballs?
Sure.
It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And boy, I got guys like, what are you talking about? This is the great. No, it's not great. It's a dump. For what are these things priced? $5?
Yeah, because they're 40. Basically they're some of them are $3.99 and some of them are $5.99, depending on whether it's 1 or 2 issues they're jamming into it.
There's only one reason why I would suggest you buy this. If you have unlimited funds, and if DC does suddenly decide, hey, you know what? That future Slate Suicide Squad really caught people's attention. Let's bring them back. You've almost guaranteed yourself a very lucrative back issue, because I've talked with a lot of retailers, especially when we were out on Black Friday. None of them are happy about future Slate. There's a number of readers, they're thinking, oh my God, this is the best thing since sliced bread. How can you? And I'm like, no, it's not. It's like you said, tangent, convergence, countdown, things that they spit out. And when you're done spending your hundreds of dollars, you're going to go, why? We talked earlier about, how Mark Waid's like, well, you should support these guys. Blah. No, I don't have to support it. Your company's already said it's an abortion. idea. You're not getting my $5 times however many books. Somebody said this future slate's got more books in it than the current crossover King in Black going on over at Marvel. Ridiculous. Again, if you like it, buy it. If you got unlimited funds, there's even one book in 52 that actually went up in price because it's a first appearance of somebody. I forget who it was. So yeah, odds are good. Maybe DC might come back to this. I wouldn't bet money on it. And I'm not buying any of it. However, there were two things I am buying. The first one is John Constantine, Rise and Fall. Cory recommended this, and as we were out and about on Black Friday, I could not find any store that had them all. So I'm just going to buy the trade paperback. And the
cover that's
even
out.
Better. If it's that damn good, it'd be nice because I'll probably reread it. And the last thing I'm buying, Superman versus Shazam, which has pretty much all the Superman Shazam fights except their first meeting, I think, in JLA. It also collects the big Gary Conway collector edition C58. So I'm looking forward to that one because these were always two of my favorite characters. I could never dream of being Superman, but every boy could dream of being Captain Marvel just by saying the magic word, Shazam. So, and just for the record, the only other DC comic I'm buying is the Green Lantern number 11. Is Morrison's run almost over?
Yes, it ends with issue 12.
Okay, because I sit back and Morrison's on and I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. And then I got a little whisper that, oh, no, he's almost done. I'm like, oh, well. But I'll see who takes over Green Lantern afterwards. That's it for me.
The trade paperbacks and hardcovers were really thin this really thin. There is a omnibus of who's who, so if you want outdated information on all the DC heroes from 1985, they do have the update from 87 and 88. And then some of the pages, when they did in the annuals, they would do some who's who. Much like the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, it's cool that they're collecting this, but it's not for me because it's outdated. And at the time it came out, it was very cool because it was kind of a snapshot, and they really used it to kind of say, okay, here is the actual history of these heroes. But it has since been changed so many times and on and on and on. I do want to recommend, even though I already have the hardcover, Sheriff of Babylon by Tom King and Mitch Gerads, who they went on to do Mr. Miracle. They're doing Strange Adventures. This is actually a non-superhero book by Tom King. Baghdad, 2003, in an effort to establish some semblance of order in the war-torn city, Florida cop-turned military consultant Chris Henry has been assigned to train cadets and law enforcement. Now, Tom King was a CIA agent who was active in the Iraq War. So he comes into this with a lot of knowledge of what was going on at the time. I also find it interesting that for Flashpoint, they do the big 1,500-page omnibus. But for Final Night, which I felt was one of DC's better crossovers of the 90s, it's just a trade paperback reprinting just the core book.
Boring.
And I liked Final Night. What it is, Carl Kessel actually used some Legion stuff in it, in that a Sun Eater, which was a villain in the Legion, devours the Earth's sun. So what can our superheroes do to save Earth? Other than that, there were not a lot. There were a couple interesting books that I don't know if I'll get or not. First is Black Canary, Bird of Prey, which reprints some of the big stories by with Black Canary. They don't reprint the they do reprint the Alex Toth stories, which are really good. But it's really, here's some stories from the Golden Age, here's some from the Silver Age, and that's really about it. Black Canary never really had a series of her own until Birds of Prey. And then there is a hardcover of the Warren Ellis Brian Hitch Batman's Grave story, which I liked. Brian Hitch is an amazing artist. Warren Ellis is a problematic writer, but this is one of the stories he's finished, so that makes it a rarity.
Never last.
But other than that, not a lot out of DC that I'm excited about.
On to IDW.
Yep, on to IDW.
I've got one thing I'll point out on page 118. Star Trek, The Next Generation, The Gift, which is by writer John D. Lance, who
Delancey,
better known as Q, and local artist Gordon Purcell. And this was published from the DC years, wasn't it?
Book. Yep, yeah. It's one of the DC books.
So I must have it somewhere. If I can't find it quickly, I will.
Okay. On the next page is Star Trek Year 5. I normally don't point out ongoing series, but for a few months they would say that this is a 24-issue maxi series. They're no longer saying that, so I don't know what they're going to do with it. The Last Ronin has been so successful, that's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles by Eastman and Laird, that they're actually talking about doing all sorts of spin-offs from it. And then I believe there was nothing else from IDW I was interested in, because there is not a book from Yoe Publishing, which irritates the hell out of me. Get some Yoe Books.
Everything. I guess, you plug in the computer, the heater, my phone, 3 fans, a dehumidifier, various lights, and, my microwave oven and portable toaster. Too much.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you're back, because it's time for Marvel.
Yay! Hang on a second as I close the massive DC tomb and open up my little tiny svelte Marvel.
By the way, 17 pages of first 17 pages are King in Black.
Yeah. I don't have much in comics that I'm buying. I'm not buying a lot of the King in Black. I am buying the main series like I'm always want to do. There is one that kind of caught my attention and I'm on the fence about it. And I don't know if it was this month or last month, but it was a Doctor Doom Iron Man fighting a Venomized Santa Claus. It was just a one-shot, and anytime you get Doom and Iron Man together, it was kind of interesting.
Well, but since this book's coming out in February, I would hope that they would get it out in December.
Yeah, so I might be late on that one. But on page 24 is something I most definitely will pick up. Black Knight #1 facsimile edition.
Yes.
1955. Just to get it represented in its original form, ads and all. I mean, I will probably never seek out this for my personal collection, but to have a facsimile of this is pretty cool.
Joe Manili art.
Yeah.
So take a look at that cover.
Young guy, what's Stan Lee?
Stanley.
Must be some foreign guy, but it must be. I don't know if he did anything after this, but we'll check it out.
I do want to point out on the page before, the Morbius series seems to have gone away, but they're doing a one-shot, Bond of Blood by Ralph Macchio. Ralph Macchio seems to be doing a lot of these one-shots that kind of ride on a movie, because he did a Black Widow one. He's now doing a Morbius one. Ralph Macchio's a very good editor. He's a very good editor. But all of these one-shots that I've read by him are really throwaway stories. They're very generic, by the number, would have been a fill-in the 80s type books. So unless you're really excited about the art or a huge Morbius guy, you can skip this, especially since it's it's only $3.99. but his Wonder Woman, his Black Widow story was utterly forgettable, and so have his others.
Can I go from up to page 25? I want to point out something.
Sure.
This freaking's coming a little early, folks. Marvel, I absolutely hate you when you do shit like this. Because first of all, you solicit for Eternals, and then you decided to push it back, and now rather than resolicit, you're just, oh, well, use this old order code. You guys are really getting to be lazy putzes, aren't you? Is it bad enough you're stealing my ideas for your movies? So anyways, Cory and I were excited about the Eternals series. If you didn't order it, talk to your local comic store, and he can still get you on the list. But, now I got to order 2, 3, and 4 because they've already been pre-ordered, rather than, I know realistically for a comic store, they're now allowed to up and, reduce or increase their order. But it's annoying. Just resolicit the damn thing. Enough said.
On page 27, 28, and 29 is a new series, X-Men Legends. What this is, these are stories that are kind of set in the 90s run of the X-Men.
Why? Dear God, why?
However, this is kind of going to be an anthology. So the first one by Fabian Nicieza and Brett Booth, that's why, is set in the 90s X-Men, but they will be able to pretty much do any sort of any time period in the X-Men. What I have heard is that they're going to try and get teams that have high sales potential that want to do X-Men stories but not part of the current continuity, because 2 reasons. One, Fabian Nicieza his older stuff is selling well. Brett Booth is kind of a former superstar artist, but has that same style. They could put this out as a trade paperback, much like when DC did Legends of the Dark Knight. So it's going to be kind of an X-Men version of Legends of the Dark Knight. Chris Claremont is working on an upcoming story.
Basically, this is for all you crybabies that don't like Hickman's stuff. Oh, they got my X-Men. He's so terrible. He ruined the Avengers. He made up Mount St. Helens blow up twice. So this is for you. Put your money where your mouth is, or it's going to go away.
I think it could also be cool with, hey, get Louise Simonson to do another New Mutant story. Get Peter David to do an older X-Factor story, etc., etc.
However, Cory, tell them what you always say about anthologies.
They don't sell.
So, folks, this is your chance. Put your money where your mouth is, or this baby's going bye-bye. It'll be sitting in the quarter bins with all those Tales of Spider-Man or all of the Batman, Legends of Batman or whatever. We'll have 1 or 2 runs. Oh, yeah, that was a good story. But the rest of it will be irrelevant. I laugh at the 70s because I sold X-Men comics during the 90s. I sold them during the 90s. Holy God, holy, they were largely unreadable and cross-hatched so bad you'd get a splinter the minute you open the book. However, with the slate of creators behind it, it could have potential. It's up to you. Only you can prevent bad X-Men stories.
I'm a little confused because I remember when Nonstop Spider-Man was originally solicited, it was a one-shot, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's issue number 2, and it doesn't say it's a miniseries. So maybe this is an ongoing series. Maybe we don't know what's going on with that. But it's Joe Kelly and Chris Bacalo, so I'm buying it. See, that was easy.
Yeah.
There's all of the X-Men stuff. Amazing Spider-Man, they say there's going to be huge changes after the current story is over. And in the next issue of Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man has to go to hell to make a deal with the devil, but he already has.
Cool. Maybe they'll get rid of that boondoggle.
I don't know what they're going to do.
I will point out one thing, has nothing to do with previews. Remember that Pat Gleason cover we talked about where it was just all silver and black Spider-Man?
Yes, it was all webbing.
I believe if you go to his website, you can actually order one directly from him and have it autographed. So if you're prone to do that, that's a great way to not only support Pat directly, but ensure that you get yourself a decent copy of that.
One other thing about the Pat Gleason Spider-Man covers, he hides a skull in every one. So it's kind of like, remember in Playboy, they would hide the bunny head. And there were, what was it? When Todd McFarlane was working on Spider-Man, he would hide spiders. And then with when he signed it, he would write how many spiders he hid in the cover. I always think it's cool that artists do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now on to the collected editions. There is on pages, let's see, 66 and 67. They're the artists they are hyping are now called Stormbreakers. They did this a few years ago. I forget what they called it, but it's kind of a, hey, we think these artists are really cool and we're going to highlight them. Patrick Gleason, local Minneapolis guy, hardworking guy who's been trying to break in, for the longest time. He is one of the 8.
I'm going to break this down in 2 categories. Books I'm definitely ordering, and I'll direct you to page 92, 93. I did not jump on board this run of Iron Man that Christopher Cantwell and who's it, Catfu was doing, but I've been reading it, and it just sounds fascinating. So I'm going to pick up this first run and give it a shot, mainly because they're bringing back Korvac, and they're not just bringing him back, but it sounds like he kicks Iron Man's ass. So it'd be interesting to see what they do, and then. There is everything else, and by that I'm looking at you, Omnibuy. Marvel, I don't have overtime anymore. Please be merciful.
We get us a Spider-Gwen omnibus.
I know, and this is a good one because this has almost everything up to her regular run, including that rare Edge of Spider-Verse #2.
1,224 pages.
That is a cornerstone. And on the next page,
they are reprinting a whole bunch of omnibuses.
Age of Omnibus.
Age of Apocalypse. Age of Omnibus.
Omnibus. I know. This is the Age of Omnibus. I've here dubbed it. X-Men, Age of Apocalypse. Not only the companion, but then down below, there's the regular with a Billy Tan cover. You get choices of covers, so it's not that big a deal. Across from it, Heroes Reborn.
That's Heroes Reborn image version of the Marvel characters.
And I enjoyed it when it came out, and I'm always wary of dropping $125 or less in case I get it and go, this is Avengers Crossing. I only paid $10 for that. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 Omnibuy. That alone is more than all the other comics from all the other publishers combined.
But wait, there's more.
There's more.
On page 76, they are starting to reprint the Miller Daredevil in the Masterworks. I have it in omnibuses. There is the second Power Pack omnibus, which completes the run of the series and some of the stuff that came after on page 79. Power Pack, one of my favorite series, although after Louise Simonson left, it lost a lot of charm for me. There is another Wolverine omnibus.
Yeah.
Which shows just how much Wolverine was coming out in the early 90s, because it's not just Wolverine number 11 through 36, but it's all of the stories from Marvel Comics Presents 38 through 71 that Wolverine was in, including Weapon X by BWS, Barry Windsor Smith. And you could get a Barry Windsor Smith cover, a John Byrne cover, or a Jim Lee cover. And they are reprinting the Man-Thing omnibus.
Yeah,
so
that one I've got.
There is a shit ton of omnibuses coming out in February. Although these are, if you look at the actual dates they're coming out, it's like they're in May. They're basically, this is their summer omnibuses. But what it's why I tell people do not pay big money for out-of-print omnibuses. They eventually print them. Even with that Kirby Eternals one, the omnibus they've put out now, while it's not everything I would have wanted in it, it has the Kirby stories, the Maxi series, the What If stories, and the one-shots and miniseries through the 80s and 90s. It does not have that Thor story that brought the Eternals into the Marvel Universe, which is why I said to get that trade paperback. But the original Eternals omnibus at one point was selling for like, what, $1,200 on places? Jeez. So you might get a giant-sized Man-Thing?
No, I got one already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that was one of those, one of the smaller shops in town was open, and he had a first print for cover, and I thought, you know what, I'll buy that because it was out of print, and a whole ton of stuff I've never read. For me, that's kind of the key on the omnibuses, is it stuff I've read? Is it stuff I care to read? I mean, I've got Wolverine, Nick Fury, the Scorpio connection. Or, if I may jump forward to page 103, Spider-Man by Todd McFarlane, the complete collection. Do you know why I would possibly want to buy this, Cory?
Why is that?
The original comics suck.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not quality, not art, not story. It's newsprint. The art fades, it bleeds through to the other side. No matter how many times I buy it, and you can buy them, they're cheap, they're all over the place. You just buy it, and the art is so lackluster in these newsprint editions. To have it in a graphic novel on glossy cover, and hopefully they don't do like a lot of remastering, because I mean it looks good on the faded newsprint, but to get on some really decent paper, it would be nice to have this. Plus, I'll finally have it in my collection, and I can take all those other runs I have and just put them back in the dollar bins where I bought them.
I want to go back to page 99.
Uh-oh.
This is the Fantastic Four Antithesis Treasury Edition. That is the story by Mark Waid and Neil Adams. It is treasury sized. And the story itself was actually pretty good. Neil Adams, inked by, I believe, Mark Farmer, who usually inks Alan Davis. So one of the problems I've had with Neil Adams is, one, his stories make absolutely no goddamn sense. And two, he has his studio ink him, and they're a little too slavish to his pencils, whereas a good inker knows what to highlight and what to draw back. Mark Farmer is one of the best inkers in the business. It was the best Neil Adams has looked in, I would say, a good 20, 30 years. But it also has X-Men number 65 and Fantastic Four number 60 in it. So it's a really nice book. Really nice book, some nice reprints in the backup, and you get Neil Adams in that treasury size. And you know, it's only $34.99, so you could get it around $20 online.
And they make good shutters for your windows.
I want to warn people away from the Shang-Chi, Earth's Mightiest Martial Artist trade paperback for a specific reason. It has a classic cover by Gil Kane, but the stories inside are the kind of the post Master of Kung Fu stories where he showed up in the X-Men and he showed up in Heroes for Hire and he showed up in Shadowland. These are not good stories. It was where they basically were using him to keep the copyright, and they didn't quite know what to do because they didn't have the rights to Fu Manchu, and they hadn't quite settled on, well, what do we do with the fact that he's the son of Fu Manchu and we can't use Fu Manchu? He's kind of just character there for a tie-in. Get the Master of Kung Fu stuff. Get the most recent miniseries. Skip this book. And then we get to the epic line, which I find, first off, they are reprinting stuff. So if there's stuff that you missed out on, it's going to be back, such as the epic collection, The Sentinels Live, which reprints, the Neil Adams issues. As well as their appearance. Basically, this reprints up to the end of the X-Men series. Starts with the Barry Windsor Smith story in issue 50, I believe. That starts a little before that, so you get some Don Heck and Werner Roth. But then you get the Sternenko story, the Barry Windsor Smith story, all the Neil Adams stuff. And then the next page is the epic for Fate of the Phoenix, which is probably the most famous X-Men story ever. It's X-Men 125 to 143, so it's the last part of the Byrne run, the Phoenix Saga, and Tales of Future Past, all in one book. Star Wars Epic Collection, The New Republic, reprints the Dark Empire books, which are the comics that and the Tron trilogy by Timothy Zahn in the early 90s kind of reignited everybody being excited about Star Wars. And if you've never read Dark Empire, pick this book up. It's an amazing story. And I think I've talked in the past about Dark Empire was developed to be an epic comic. Dark Horse swooped in at the last minute, bought the rights, and got the book to be published by them. So if you go back to Marvel in 91 and you read their promo stuff for Marvel Age and stuff coming out in 1992, it's got Star Wars Dark Empire, which was printed by Dark Horse in 92. Then the other epic collection for Conan reprints the end of the Barry Windsor Smith run, including a crossover with Elric that was co-written by Michael Moorcock. And then more reprints of the epic stuff. They reprint the first Captain America epic book and the second Fantastic Four epic book.
And you forgot, of course, the first appearance of Red Sonja.
Oh, yeah.
Conan.
And if you look on the cover, that is Red Sonja. That was the way she was drawn in her first appearance.
Yeah.
She didn't have the chainmail until Frank Thorne drew her, because Frank Thorne, he's Frank Thorne. That's what he draws.
Yep.
And that is Marvel. Next up is Dynamite.
Let's see. Dynamite. Nothing new for me.
For those of you who are upset that Netflix canceled Altered Carbon, there is a one-shot Altered Carbon comic. Hardcover, of course. Original story written by series creator in canon and continuity. Everything from Dynamite has 42 different covers. I think if you are a working artist and you haven't done a variant cover for Dynamite, you're really not in the comic business.
You're not really trying.
Jeez. Next up is Boom.
Let's see. Boom. I got some Boom stuff.
Ooh.
Boom stuff. On page 168, Luna, 5-issue miniseries from Maria Lovett. For fans of Faithless and Die, it's two different series, Faithless, and I think Die was from Marvel, or no, Image.
Yeah.
It's a dark thriller when Teresa fatefully crosses paths with the family of the son She believes them to be exactly what anyone else in the late 1960s would expect, a hippie cult whose leaders claim to have met the divine. But secret blood rituals, powerful drugs, and sex runneth amok will bring Teresa face to face with the truth about the family, herself, and the dark secret behind her dreams. What caught my attention was the 3 pages of art they offer. I'm like, oh, that is so amazing, so colorful, so trippy. Having a bad trip, man. 5 issues from Boom. I'll give that one a shot.
If you go to page 182,
oh, hey, you're way ahead of me.
There is a new Peanuts graphic novel. It's called Scotland Brown, Charlie Brown. And the reason I am interested in this was a special that was being put together by Bill Mendez and Charles Schultz that never got finished. So they had Jason Cooper and Robert Pope do an adaptation of it. There's on page 183, you see the art, which it's different enough from Schultz that you can tell it's by someone else, but it's faithful. And I like the fact that it's faithful without someone saying, well, I need to draw just like Charles Schultz. Because Schultz isn't with us anymore. If we're going to be continuing this stuff, it should have his feel, but you should be able to bring your own sort of take on the characters. And I am interested in this because it's a lost Charles Schultz story. And I liked all of the Peanuts specials. I think they were all very good. Bill Menendez and Charles Schultz knew how to put together a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Anything else from Boom for you?
No, those were the 2 big ones.
I do want to point out on page 184 and 185 that all of the stuff that Boom published for conventions that didn't happen is now available to be ordered. It's going to cost more. It's going to be like 20, 30, 40 bucks for a regular comic. But if you're into those convention exclusives, and there were no conventions this year, you can pick them up. I'm not one of the guys who's into that, but I know people who are. And that was it for Boom for me, too.
And now the rest. Let's see. I will jump it off.
Previous theme this month is from the archives. So if you do go to page 196 and 197, they do highlight some reprints of older stuff, including the Strangers in Paradise, Vampirella Archives, that EC Pictofiction that I pointed out. It's funny how people go, oh, well, you know, the box sets. I've seen this Pictofiction box set in shops for $300, $400, $500. You could still get it for the regular price of $150. They still got them in the warehouse.
Yeah.
So what are you pointing out, Joe?
I'm on page 210 in Aftershock. Nuclear Family. Nuclear. America. 1957. Elvis dominates the airwaves. Apple pie is served after every meal. But when the dark cloud of Holocaust looms, Korean War vet Tim McLean, his major concern is taking care of his family in the atomic age. When the first bomb does drop on an unsuspecting Midwest city, Tim and his family find themselves plunged into a strange new world where what's left of the United States has gone underground while continuing to wage war with Russia with unthinkable tactics. So I'm going to give this one a try. It's a new series. Maybe read better as a graphic novel, but I studied this stuff in college, so it caught my attention, and I'll give it a go. And then again, in future episodes, I'll probably be on one of my review episodes.
Back on page 219, there is another of the Goon trade paperbacks, Goon, A Bunch of Old Crap, Volume 4, where he's reprinting the stuff from Dark Horse. He's basically taking 2 of the Dark Horse collections, fusing them into one book so that it's, you know, it's hefty. It's, you know, like around 400 pages for 30 bucks. The Goon is a lot of fun. It's horror, weirdness, hillbilly humor, and Eric Powell art. Eric Powell art is so good. Also underneath that is Grumble. which is drawn by a friend of the show, Mike Norman.
Hi, Mike.
Mike Norton. Eddie, small-time crook stuck in a pug's body, and Tank, Eddie's estranged and part demon daughter, are going on their most bizarre, action-packed, and emotional adventure yet. Boy, Mike Norton likes drawing pugs. So, cool stuff coming out from Albatross Press.
Cory, are you feeling cheap?
Always.
Then you need to go to page, and this is going to be a double one, so don't hurt your knuckles. Page 234, our friends at Avatar are blowing out more stuff. If you're a Lady Death fan, go to page 250, Boundless. Same thing with Lady Death. So their liquidation seems to go on.
Forever.
It's getting to the point where I've got to really be careful because I'm like, oh my gosh, wait a minute, I bought this last year or last month or 2 months ago.
Or 2 years ago.
Yeah. So, but check it out, and you may find some fun stuff that you like.
Their art style doesn't appeal to me for a number of reasons, but I would like to point out that they've got some Alan Moore stuff you're not going to find anywhere else. Light of Thy Countenance and another suburban romance. There's also a really good book called Do Anything by Warren Ellis. It's $2.99, and it's basically his columns from the early 2000s about getting into being creative. How even if, okay, I'm a comic book artist, you don't have to just be a comic book artist. You can branch out and work in other areas. And it's one of the better how-to books. But, man, Avatar, they put out one book in, because remember, they had all those ads. We're coming back in the fourth quarter. We're coming back in the fourth quarter. And they put out a single comic.
Mm-hmm.
Very disappointed in Archie this time again, because once again they're not putting out any of the comics that we've been waiting for. They're also all of their digests are regular digest size, none of the big thick ones. But I would like to send you over to page 256.
Dun dun dun.
And there is a new Robert E. Howard. Short stories by Robert E. Howard with all new illustrations by Lock and Key co-creator Gabriel Rodriguez. These are not adaptations. These are the short stories. They're the non-Conan, non-series character short stories. They're a bunch of his horror stories he did. Really nice collection. It's authorized by his estate, and I'm going to be picking it up because Robert E. Howard is a product of his time. When you read pulp stories, you have to be ready for the fact that there's a lot of racism in these stories. I think I talked about how I read the first Tarzan novel, and it's like, oh my gosh, was this written by the KKK? So you have to be aware that that's what was pop culture and the overriding thought process at the time. If you could get past that, these are good horror stories. I want to put a warning, though. If you can't get past that, just skip them. Because it's not that Robert E. Howard was going out of his way to be racist. It's just that was the prevailing thought at the time. Have I put enough disclaimers on that? It's kind of like when you go to watch some of the early Looney Tunes and they have Leonard Maltin go, we don't approve of the fact that racial stereotypes are used, but they were a product of the time and we present it as for historical accuracy.
I think you're being vague and evasive. So I'm going to direct people to page 240. AWA. No, not the American Wrestling Association. We're talking, what's it? American Writers? I don't know. But
artists, writers, and artisans.
Aha. Well, we're going for Redemption #1, written by Krista Faust, illustrated by Mike Deodato Jr., 5-issue miniseries. The dusty desert town of Redemption survived the apocalypse, but is hanging on by a thread. A despot rules the town with an iron fist and controls its most precious resource, water. When that strongman marks her mother for death, young Rose, good place for a hyphen, Obregon ventures into the perilous wasteland to seek help of the legendary gunslinger Cat Tanner, only to discover that the so-called Butcher is long retired, living in solitude far from what's left of the world, and would prefer to keep it that way. What happens? Well, you got 5 issues from AWA to check it out. And if you like Frank Joe variant covers, there's one right there. I can guarantee not a lot of people will be picking that baby up.
On page 287, there is a Marvel novel published by Marvel themselves, Loki, Where Mischief Lies. And it's basically it's coming out to hype the Loki TV series. It'll be out in, when is it? Supposedly it should be out in February, but it's another Marvel novel. I think it's interesting that Marvel's got novels coming out that they're publishing themselves, that Titan Books is publishing, and other people are publishing. Kind of like how the Disney comics are being published by 3 or 4 different publishers as well. Disney, I guess, doesn't want to keep their eggs all in one basket.
Jump to page 255. I'm pointing this out not because I'm buying it, but you may be interested in it just because of the property. The Matrix Comics 20th Anniversary Deluxe Editions. 2 different covers, reprinting pretty much everything, including stories by Neil Gaiman, Dave Gibbons, Bill Sienkiewicz, Michael Oeming, and what were the cats who made this thing? Walla Walla Washingtons. Anyways, if you're a Matrix fan, this is a good one to go for. It's been out before, but it's your chance to get it if you missed it the first time around.
They're really good short stories set in the Matrix universe back when we used to care about that.
Yeah.
Well, and there is a 4th movie that's going to be on HBO Max. Let's see. On page 302, Rebellion has another of the Judge Dredd Complete Case files. These are like the collections of all the Judge Dredd stories. They are now up to volume 36. I picked these up because there's no way in hell I'm able to keep up with 2000 AD, but I like me some Judge Dredd. Because, boy, 2000 AD, I guess they are finally starting to show up in the U.S. again, but they're coming out of order. So, like, June and July showed up, but we still don't have April. Then May came, and then August, and so, yay, COVID.
Yeah. I'm going to point out something I'm mighty pissed about. Another freaking. On page 266, we talked last month about Monsters by Mary Windsor Smith.
Yes.
This month, they're offering a signed limited edition. Thank you, Fantagraphics. I'd have ordered this thing if you'd have said, hey, next month a signed edition, or maybe offered them at the same time. But you're being putzes. So I probably, unless I can cancel the previous one, you ain't getting 2 books out of me. Really, really poor way to run your business. What the hell, you going to route of DC? I actually expect better from Fantagraphics. So, but then again, up on the page 267, nobody likes you, Grump. Or I'm sorry, Greta Grump. Sorry, that's nothing to do with me. I just like saying the title. Order it too. It's a good book. So,
speaking of Marvel having their novels published by all sorts of different people, there's a hardcover of Morbius the Living Vampire, a novel, on page 315. They say that the new Morbius movie is arriving March 19th. Don't hold your breath. The novel will be out, but the movie,
yeah.
And then the in tomorrow's, the issue of back issue is a new one. You have to be careful because they resolicit older issues that are like 3-4 months old that may not have come out yet. So you have to be careful that, okay, is this a new one or is this being offered again? But this issue is all about the Flash. It's a legacy issue, so it's Wally West as the Flash, Harry Osborn as Green Goblin, Scott Lang as Ant-Man, Infinity Incorporated, Back issue is probably one of the best comic history magazines. It mostly goes bronze and what do they call it? The Image Age, the one after that, copper.
They've been trying to use copper, but it really hasn't caught on. For the most part, it's just modern age.
So it started out as silver and bronze age, then it became just bronze age, and now it's basically it's bronze age up through about 1992, 93. So it's basically hanging back about 25 years for your nostalgia needs. They also are offering the American Comic Book Chronicles, the 90s again. Fantastic book. I gave a copy to Joe, and Joe loves it. And then the last thing in regular comics that I have is on page 334, Warrant Publishing is publishing their second issue of Vampirella Carmella. I wanted to point this out for one reason. The people who currently own the rights to Creepy and Eerie, who had nothing to do with Creepy and Eerie back in the day, are suing Warrant Publishing, saying that they are basically they're ripping off Creepy. And their magazine is called The Creeps. They use a lot of Warren artists and writers, but I don't know if that could be considered stepping on their copyright. I'm sure we won't find out for years because these lawsuits take forever. And that's all I had in the regular books.
The only thing I got is on page 273, the second printing facsimile edition of the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide #1. We've talked ad nauseum on this. Chance to order it, coming out February 24th. There's the soft cover, the limited hardcover, and the signed and numbered limited hardcover. I wonder which one I'm going for.
And did you notice the second print of, they reprinted the first price guide. The reprint of that is going to be on blue pages, just like the second printing of the Overstreet price guide was back in the day. So I thought that was interesting. And now, we're not doing ads today, Joe.
No ads?
No ads. It's the Christmas time. And instead of doing ads, we highlight charities we enjoy, like this one. During the holiday season, we here at Crazy Comics and Stories and the other podcasts in the Solitaire Rose Radio Network turn our ad space over to charities. And the first charity we're going to be highlighting is the Hero Initiative. It's at heroinitiative.org. It helps comic creators in need. The Hero Initiative creates a financial safety net for comic creators who may need emergency medical aid, financial support for the essentials of life, and an avenue back to paying work. Since its inception, the Hero Initiative has been fortunate enough to benefit creators with more than $1 million worth of much-needed aid, fueled by your contributions. It's a chance for all of us to give back something to people who've given us so much enjoyment. You can donate. You can go to Humble Bundle, and there's usually a bundle there that you can purchase and give part of those proceeds. There's an eBay site where you can purchase art and books that have been donated, and there are other initiatives that you can get out on heroinitiative.org. That's heroinitiative.org, one of the charities we will be highlighting this holiday season. And then, did you see that Solitaire Rose Radio came back last week?
I didn't see much of anything.
Oh, that's right. You had ammonia. Solitaire Rose Radio came back last week. I interviewed Mike Barron, who is turning the superhero comic that he did in the 80s, 90s, and today, The Badger, into a novel. And that Kickstarter still is going on until Saturday, the 20th.
Patcher, mushroom.
And here's all the other podcasts that I've done. The Solitaire Rose Radio Network is currently on a pause, basically because COVID-19 has made it so that I have to work a lot of extra hours at both jobs. But you can still go and listen to my other podcasts. Now, you're probably listening to Crazy Comics and Stories, which is the main podcast. But on this same feed, KRAYZCOMIX, is Solitaire Rose Radio, the solo radio podcast that I do. I've done interviews, I've done short stories, I've done all sorts of things, and you can get to it right here on this same feed. I also do a podcast called Novelcast, where I take the novels I've written and turn them into free audiobooks. That's over at novels.solitairerose.com. Dangerous Dan Moore and I, and of course Wolfie B. Bad, give you bad advice over at badadvice.solitairerose.com. You send in your questions, and we give you the aforementioned bad advice. And then myself and Adam Vermillion from For the Love of Comics do the Fantastic Forecast at fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com, where we go through the issues of the Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time, to give the plot and commentary on each issue. That's not all. Yes, I'm crazy. I still, over at pwinsiderelite.com, every week on Wednesday, do a recap of the latest episode of AEW Dynamite. I write up what happened, and then myself and Anthony Pyrus will do an audio. Now, you can only listen to the audio if you're a member at pwinsiderelite.com, and if you're a wrestling fan, you should be, where we then break down the episode, talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, give it a grade, and let you know if you should have watched that episode. Those are the other podcasts here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network. Thanks. And now we get to Joe's favorite part of the show. No, not where he tells me to F off and goes back and sits on the couch and watches baby metal videos. No, it's Joe, what's going on the eBays?
Nothing.
Thanks. And now we get to my favorite part of the show.
Yep.
No, not where I eat an entire Little Caesars pizza on my own.
Actually, before we get to your favorite part of the show, I'm going to interject a new segment to the show.
Another one?
I know. It's just one we're going to do in those weird occasions like now, where we've gone an entire month in real time, but in podcasting world, due to your extraordinary podcasting skills, you've dropped a podcast every week.
Every Monday.
It looks like we're just merrily going along when, in fact, we haven't actually podcasted together in a month, because the whole Black Friday thing was, when we got together. So I just like to say, we'll call this one, what the hell have you been up to? And it doesn't have to be long, because this is already a long show. But I give you an idea what I'm talking about here, Cory, because like I said, the last time we talked was around the weekend of the 22nd. So from then, my wife and we went up north for a short trip. And it was different. Restaurants and bars were closed as per order here. Not a lot of people around. The weather was fall-like, which was made it perfect for walking. Chris was still got effects of COVID when we tried to hit some of the tougher trails. Little beknownst, I was having problems walking, but I didn't know why. I just figured it's because I'm out of shape. I did, though, get to visit 2 of my favorite stores up on the North Shore. And I mean, we visited a lot. The donut store was closed, unfortunately. Hang on a second, I gotta get the old Crayola 5000 going. We actually got up to Grand Marais, and we visited what they call Drury Lane Books, which is a bookstore that was open, practicing social distancing. Not that it matters, we were the only customers there. And we did something I absolutely love doing when I'm in small bookstores. We bought a book that we probably could have got at a discount somewhere else for full price. In this case, we bought Obama's memoirs, which is like a $40 book, I think, isn't it? But I like supporting bookstores. So Drury Lane up in Grand Marais, we stopped in there. We stopped, of course, at North Shore Winery. Got myself some cider. Chris got wine. Some of our favorite places, the Mocha Moose up on the North Shore. for coffee. But we stayed at Cove Point, which we've been at before, and it was a full kitchenette. We had planned to have everybody up, but due to the big sea, the kids didn't come up, so it was just Chris and I in this beautiful place overlooking Lake Superior. And we brought our own food. We cooked. We brought luncheons when we ran around. I mean, there wasn't enough fast food places open. We weren't going to starve, but we got to visit quite a bit. But on the way home in Duluth, I got to stop not only at Toy Galaxy, where I did finally pick up my replica cereal box of Kaboom.
Ooh.
And he told me it was a smaller one that was actually part of a General Mills store. So it was like their second version. So it's not a full-size replica, but actually a replica from General Mills as opposed to some of the other ones. And then I got to stop next door to Collector Connection, and I met up with the owner, Aaron. And, it was hard to talk because, everybody's wearing masks. But I said, Aaron, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Joe Ryder. I used to come to your store all the time. We went to your shows, and he remembered me. And we stepped outside and talked for about a half hour. What happened is Chris dropped me off and then went over to Target to pick up some stuff. So it was kind of fun catching up with him. He been in business 38 years, which is amazing. He said he stepped back for a decade or so to get his daughter through school. Sounds familiar. That's what I did with Hot Comics. And so he's still up there. He's got a lot of exciting news going on. His business is going great. He comped me a copy of previews, which was great. So that was kind of fun. Thanksgiving, it was just the four of us in the household. Dana, her boyfriend, stopped over. My dad stopped over, but we stayed outside. Fortunately, it was nice. And then, of course, we did our Black Friday extravaganza. If you go back and listen, you'll hear two things. First of all, I didn't talk a hell of a lot. And second of all, I had a dry cough. I'll tell you what I did Saturday. I slept all day. I was out. When I woke up Sunday, I felt like an elephant stepped on me. And of course, what's the number one thing you think when you can't breathe and you're having trouble, you feel like shit?
COVID.
Yeah. It could be like, holy cow, Cory Strode fell down 15 stories of stairs, his arms behind his leg, he's got his bone extruding through his foot. Yeah, looks like COVID. My wife brought me down. I did that spit test thing that they're doing down at our river center. 2 days later, wasn't COVID. And I did talk to you, I know, Cory, because of the nature of your business. If I thought I had it, I want to make sure, if I didn't want to inadvertently pass it on. And, I was wearing a mask most of the day. But my God, I felt like somebody lit my lungs on fire. I couldn't breathe. Even now my voice is raspy. I felt good just to sleep. Felt good just to put it hot on my chest. Finally, I did a vocal call with a doctor. He had me go and get a chest x-ray, do another COVID test. And that's when they found out it was pneumonia, which was good and bad. Good because that means they could treat me with antibiotics and steroids, and it helped. Bad because that means I had to burn the rest of my own sick time. If I have COVID at work, they will give me work and safety leave. And there's a lot of people out with COVID. So, I was surprised I didn't get a lot of grief for taking 2 weeks off. But I'm back to zero sick time and vacation time, just like I was the last couple of years with my hips. So I didn't really do much. What little I did, we'll talk when we get to freaking and geeking. I kept in touch with Cory every so often. I had to pass last week to do a podcast, but that was basically I had 2 weeks of training, a month of vacation, and then I've been on my back for 2 weeks. And when I went to work yesterday, I wasn't feeling it. I don't know if you've ever had that, Cory, where you were you're dizzy. You just don't feel right. It doesn't. Fortunately, it was slow. My bosses were cool. I helped out where I could. So, but that's kind of what I've been doing the last month. Not a hell of a lot. How about you, Cory? Take us back to the 22nd of November. What have you been doing since then?
Well, let's see. We hung out on Black Friday. Since then,
What'd
3
you do
staff.
What'd you do Thanksgiving?
We talked
You
about that
you
on
have
the podcast.
You had that. Oh, I didn't know. Because
Yeah,
you always have a tradition on Thanksgiving.
yeah, and we talked that I watched Mystery Science Theater 3000 all day. I did not make it to the candy store because I still had tons and tons of stuff from Halloween, and I did not go over the weekend because Blue Sun Soda opened a shop down in Richfield. So now if I want my sodas, I could go there anytime, and they're really close to the group home I work at. The group home I work at has had 3 staff catch COVID. First, it was one of the part-timers who only worked a few shifts. Now both of the overnight staff have it. So when we work, we are in full PPE the whole time. The house is on quarantine, so the clients are in their room. They have to quarantine in their room so that they're not coming into contact with each other. In case one of them has it, they can't spread it to someone else. So they're kind of hanging out in their room, watching TV, doing puzzles. A couple of them say they actually prefer it, which doesn't surprise me at all. The office job it's still where every day they're pressuring, hey, can you do more overtime? Can you do more overtime? Can you do more overtime? And personal-wise, I'm just kind of dealing with all of that. I took care of my Christmas shopping in a single day because you can ship anything anywhere now. So it's like, okay, click, 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 done. And and the state of Minnesota is shut down. So restaurants are closed, theaters are closed, gyms are closed. Other businesses are open. But one of the things that has really bugged me about it all is the people who don't wear masks and have been doing all the stupid shit that's causing the spread are the ones complaining the loudest about it. Oh, I can't believe the governor is shutting down and hurting all these small businesses. Did you wear a mask? No! Well, that's why. If you look, what was it? I think last time I checked was like 2-3 days ago. There were 4 ICU beds open in the entire state. That's not, just my local area. That's not just Hennepin County. That's not just the Twin Cities. That's the whole state. And while, yes, they're getting the vaccine out, there have been some stupid mistakes done by the people who are supposed to be in charge, but pretty much were like, nope, not my job. That we could have had 100 million vaccines within 2 months, but we as a country passed on it. So the people making them have sold them to other countries, and now we're going, well, why won't you sell them to us? Because they're pre-sold. You said back last July you didn't want them because you were more involved in saying that it wasn't serious.
In another headline, just to make things happy, it's the rich countries are buying up all the vaccine.
Yeah.
So not going to get rid of this, folks, because all the poor countries are still going to have them. But we're not here to depress you yet. That's coming up.
That's later. And really, that's kind of been what I've been doing. I'm slowly bringing in the stuff from Black Friday because it's like, okay, I don't want to have stacks and stacks of boxes and stuff. I already have that, and I'm kind of doing a reorganization on where I put things. So it's okay. I'll leave that in the cart in case I get stuck at the group home, which has happened. There have been a couple times I've gone in on a Saturday afternoon, and I end up having to be there till Sunday afternoon because this staff is out because of COVID, and this staff has been pulled to another house, and this staff is sick, and everybody's in their room, so there's not a lot for us to do. But the good thing is, when we're in full PPE, we also get what is known as hero pay. So, boy, those sleeping shifts, that's a lot of money that I could be spending on omnibuses.
Omnibuy.
And now we get to my favorite part of the show. No, not where I eat the other pizza, because if you use DoorDash, Little Caesars would give you a free pizza if you ordered a pizza. Oh, so much pizza. No, it's Freaking a Geeky Joe. What you freaking on?
Well, I was kind of flipping it on the eBay thing, but I literally shut down my eBay. It was to the point where I couldn't walk up and down the stairs. It was so bad. And I got out what I could get out, and now it's open again. So, and you were talking about boxes of stuff. I've got about 7 long boxes of stuff that when I was feeling better, I kind of flipped through and decided keep it, read it, whatever. So I've got a lot of eBaying to do, and we'll be talking about it as time goes on. I mentioned I did go to work. I was a little bummed because, as I mentioned a month ago, I went through the class to get trained for Checkpoint. They still don't have what they call OGT monitors, people that can help me get the skill. You know, you taught me the book smarts. Now I got to get the practical skills going. There's nobody there. Part of it's because people are sick in COVID. Part of it's because nobody wants to do this job. It's pretty thankless. And my boss is trying to figure out some way of getting it done. So, and they have like 60 days to get it done, and I've already burned like 21 of them. So we'll see what happens. I kind of, that's pretty much it. I was going to bitch a little bit more about future shock or shit, whatever, but I think enough said about that. There was an interesting conversation. There's a number of Facebook groups I'm on, and I'm beginning to think they're basically curmudgeonly fucks who don't really want to, they just want to complain. One guy posted a comment where he thought, oh, the comics have gone to hell since they got rid of the comic code. And I literally almost bit my tongue off and slapped myself with it just to keep from going, you're out of your effing mind. Because he's just one of these guys who, you know, and he admits it, you know, where, oh, the world, ever since they got rid of the code, all these dirty, smutty comics have come out. I'm like, they've always been there. They just haven't been under the code. Not to mention code made boring comics. And there were some very exciting comics under the code too. It was just such an absurd blanket statement, you know, like we hear all the time, there's no comic books for me. Really? We just spent the last 2 hours going through a bunch and we didn't even cover everything, you know. So it's just, I got to decide if I really want to spend my time engaging people who are wishing for the 50s, not realizing that the 50s sucked because you were living under the cloud of being evaporated by a nuclear mistake. Read Command and Control. You'll be surprised we even made it this far. So that's pretty much it for freaking. Cory, what you freaking on?
When I downloaded DC's thing for this month, the lack of decent trade paperbacks blew me away. It just blew me away. It was like, my God, they're throwing, basically they are letting me go to other publishers and go, oh, the money I was going to spend on some cool DC stuff, I'm going to be spending over here and spending over here, spending over here and going here. The marketing for Future State has been terrible because it seems that no one who hasn't been following the behind the scenes stuff knows what the hell it is. They don't understand that this is a 2-month special event. They don't understand that in March, DC is kind of doing a soft reboot again. And they came out with a comic called The Last Stories of the DC Universe. It ties in with this death metal thing. And the stories were okay. But then it's like, okay, if I want to read all of this stuff that has led to death metal, I can't just go and buy a hardcover or a couple of hardcovers or an omnibus. It's okay. It started here and then went over here, and then there are all these one-shots, and then there's this, and then there's that, and it's been going on for 2 years, and it contradicts all the stuff that's going on here, and they've rewritten the ending so that it ties into this. And I know that DC now has a new editor-in-chief. Their job needs to be to streamline how the hell they are marketing and publishing things.
Cory, do you remember why?
It's a mess.
Do you remember why I got into death metal?
Yeah.
It's because Daniel was in it.
Yeah.
I still have no idea why. So, and I actually have been on these Facebook groups and said, would somebody explain death metal to me?
And they can't.
Yeah, crickets.
And Marvel isn't much better in that. I read the first issue of King in Black. Now, the premise of King in Black is the god of the symbiotes.
Who's a celestial level threat.
Who has kind of woken up and went, oh shit, there's Earth. He brings all these symbiotes to attack Earth. So it's an alien invasion. Joe, what was the last crossover Marvel did?
Didn't like houseplants raise up and attack somebody from the Celestial Madonna?
It was Empire, which was an alien invasion.
Oh.
I don't mind that Marvel is doing all of these events. I really don't. I understand why. And if an event is well done, cool. I liked the first issue of King in Black, but all I could think is the Marvel Universe is being hit with 2 alien invasions of Earth, and in Marvel time, it's within the same month.
And the first one was just kind of out of the blue. This one's actually one of those events, like War of the Realm, that's been building for years. So if you've been into the whole Venom symbiote thing, you are probably gaming it. Your belly button's been puckering all day, just waiting for this. For guys like Cory and I who are just along for the ride, we're like, eh.
Another alien invasion?
And look at the power level. Null kills Celestials. What the hell does he want with Earth? That's like me going, hey, look, there's an ant mound over there. Maybe I'll wipe it out with every single thing I own.
I think when they pitched Empire, somebody should have said, well, we've got this other alien invasion that's starting the next month. Why don't we push that off or change that or change it so it's not an alien invasion?
Or even subtly tie the two together.
And even War of the Realms was an invasion of other realms into Earth. The stories are becoming too similar. And for me, it's diminishing returns. It's like what I always say about nostalgia. For nostalgia, when it first shows up, it gets a big pop. Oh my God, this is so cool. Then the next time around, it's, oh yeah. And by the third time, no one cares. WWE is a perfect example of that. When they brought Hulk Hogan back and had him put on the red and yellow, that first tour, they actually had to edit the TV shows because when Hogan came out, he would get a 5 to 7 minute ovation. By the third time he came out, he would come out and he would get less of a pop than Eugene. Because we've seen Hogan before. We've seen him over and over and over again. What's he going to do other than come out, say his catchphrases, and leave? For these alien invasions, you better have a twist. Because otherwise it's like, oh God, Earth is being invaded again. And even though you have built this one up and built it up and made Null this huge threat, for me it's another invasion. Great. Those are the main things I am freaking on, except for at work, at the group home. We have 3 staff out with COVID, both the overnight staff, one of the part-time staff. Because it's the end of the year, we have staff who are leaving the job because, they took it for this period of time. So yeah, it's great. I get to go and sleep at work and I get paid not just my regular pay. They no longer have the sleep pay and the regular pay. It's just regular pay because they're so desperate. But I also get hero pay because I have to sleep in a mad scientist gown. But man, when I'm wanting to take some time off, it's going to be really hard when they go, we don't have anybody to work. So I really hope that things get a lot better at the job. Joe, what are you geeking on?
I had a dream so vivid, I had to write it down.
Ooh.
It was an actual story. It was like beginning, middle, end. And I woke up and I could not get out. And I think I actually texted you. I was so shocked. And I sat down and I just, on my computer, I wrote the characters. I wrote the chain of events, and I was like, my God, this is almost like a story. Now, I'm in no mood to do nano, or I don't even know if that's going this year,
Yeah.
but I may develop this as an actual story. I've had other ones where, I have this long reoccurring one where I'm trying to get all the cross show kids back because every show left them stranded wherever they were. I mean, that's a licensed property. First of all, if it ever happens, it's a minor miracle. I don't have the money to spend the licensing fee, nor do I have an idea that Sid or Marty Krofft will actually go, that's a good idea. Go ahead, develop it. So that's pure fan fiction. But this one, I was shocked. I see what happens when you get hooked up on, cough syrup, codeine, steroids, antibiotics, along with a few other toxic mixture of drugs. Oh, well. I talked about my trip up
Can
north.
I talk about the dream I had last night a little?
Let's hear about the dream last night.
I dreamed that I was back at my parents' house, and we found the crawl space, and in it were these boxes of comics I didn't remember, and it was comics I wish existed.
Oh.
Treasury editions of the Invaders. Marvel and DC crossovers from the 60s. Jack Kirby doing Marvel DC crossovers. All of these cool books, but the treasuries were like, oh, look, here's a treasury of the Invaders. Here's a Nova treasury. Here's a treasury that's just Mike Mignola art. Here's a treasury of Sal Buscema's best fight scenes. It's like, oh, can I stay in this world forever? There was also, I want to point this out, there was a piano. Now, my parents have never owned a piano. And this was one of the best jokes I've ever had in a dream. But it's like, well, why is there a piano? And my dad said, well, when we bought this house, there was a piano in it. And you played with it a little bit and said, oh, pianos are cool. So the owner threw it in for no cost. And that's how anybody gets a piano. Nobody wants a piano. It's just once they get it, if somebody shows interest, they go, here, take it. It's huge and we don't use it. Take it.
That's kind of how we got our piano. It was actually my wife's grandmother's piano. It had been in her basement for years. And we got it. And the girls were kind of tepid about maybe doing lessons, but nothing ever became of it. And I have since offered it to my brother. Chris's siblings don't want it.
A piano.
My brother does because he's a piano player.
Oh, okay.
He actually tuned this one. The problem is he's got his own health problems, and trying to get it over to him is tough. So, I want to get rid of it because, as we've talked about, I'm trying to get my stuff small enough where we can actually move out and move into what may be our retirement home. I've already kind of figured out I'll either get a condo like my old partner Gruber, and the bottom level will be my storage area, or we're just going to get a storage locker, and all my stuff will go in there, and I'll just drag them one box at a time and eBay forever. Speaking of eBay, I didn't go, you can tell I'm really sick. I didn't buy a lot off eBay. Usually when I'm home stuck sick, I go nuts and buy shit, but I only bought one thing. I bought a copy of The Legacy of Superman, signed by not only local man Dan Jurgens, but legendary Superman artist Kurt Swan. And I was like, holy cow. That was a pretty good deal for just $30 to get both their signatures. And then, of course, if you're looking for it, it ain't there anymore. But I've since taken my copy of Vic and Blood, Chronicle of Boy and His Dog, that have been signed by Harlan Ellison and Richard Corbin, off my eBays and back into my personal collection. Obviously, Richard Corbin died, was it a couple weeks ago?
Yes, he passed away on the 2nd, but his wife didn't announce it until this week so that everybody in the family could be notified and all of his, basically all of the legal stuff can be done. You can still buy stuff from Richard Corbin's website, and please do. But he passed away during heart surgery. He was 80 years old. And one of the things about Corbin that, because I've always liked his art, but with him passing, one of the things that really struck me is how many artists just effused about how much they loved his work and how very few people knew him because he didn't do conventions. I also want to throw a story out there about Corbin. Back in 1971, he was at an early convention, and Joe Orlando, who was an editor at DC, went up to him and said, "We want to hire you. We want you working for us." And went over the offer and everything. And Corbin said, "Nah, I'd rather just do my own work."
That is such an awesome story. I read that. I think Mark Vanier talked about that in one of his columns, and it was just, I think I recall his early art in Pacific Comics. Was it Twisted Tales or Alien Worlds? He just had a way with form and color, and I think it was, the typical damsel in distress against the door as things are popping through it.
He did a story in the first issue of Heavy Metal that was adapted in the movie. And he had done some work on Epic magazine, is where I first saw his stuff. But Joe, do you remember the story in the Heavy Metal movie where John Candy plays the nerdy kid who goes to the New World and now he's buff? That was based on Den, the first story in in Heavy Metal, which was an Americanized version of the French magazine Metal Hurlant. So he did some stuff for both Marvel and DC. He always did it under his own terms. And he did a Luke Cage story. He did adaptations of H.P. Lovecraft stuff at Marvel, did some stuff for Vertigo. But mostly everything he did was creator-owned. I was actually somebody who bought his last Kickstarter where they did a hardcover of Mutant World, he and Jan Strand. And just an amazing artist. And one of the few guys who could have gone from the undergrounds to the mainstream and chose not to because he didn't want to. He wanted to own his work.
Yeah, very cool. Not that he passed away, but just cool. I did have time to watch a little TV. Finished The Witcher on Netflix. Caught up with my wife and I. Caught up on The Mandalorian. Oh, one episode left. And I am plowing through Picard. I'm enjoying Picard. I really like.
Where are you in Picard?
They are on their way to the Borg cube.
Okay.
7 of 9 just finished killing the person who killed what's his name? Ichabod. Yeah. And last we see, she's blasting her way out. Oh my God! I hope we find her again. I would die to see a show of her and her Rangers. She was just so badass in that. So I'm that far.
When you get to the final episode, we need to talk.
Okay,
and we'll do it on the show.
That'll probably be next week.
Okay.
I've already the fanboy in me has already finished how I would, if I was show running this series, how I would end it. And again, this has nothing to do with reality, so I don't even know if this is a spoiler warning, but they're going to a Borg cube. It sounds to me like there's a black market in Borg technology that either the Federation can't do anything about or they're just ignoring. Sounds like the Romulans are doing a lot about it. But, I would have the, as Picard and company they finish their quest and they're leaving. All of a sudden, I forget the name of the guy or if what they've called his ship that Picard's running around in. But as they're sitting there, all of a sudden they're leaving the cube, and then all of a sudden this huge thing appears in front of them that looks like a burning sun. They drop straight down, and this thing is a huge, huge doomsday machine. And it attacks the cube, blows it up, sucks it up, disappears. And all Picard's like, what the fuck was that? And that would be how I would end the season. But I'm not show running, so don't worry about it. Reading. I actually got to the point where I could read again. And this was killer because I got my box day and all I could do was look at it and let it sit. But now that I'm actually reading, just a couple of the quick things. I got a volume of Love and Capes, The Family Way by Thomas Zahler. I believe this is other than he publishes it online. This is not from a comic series. This is an original, the first time in print, I should say, because he does this all on his website. And it's basically you fast forward, and Abby and Mark have 2 kids. And it's one of those, okay, we got to play along and figure out what's happened in time. And by the time you get to the end of it, it's actually, answers are given. There's a few more questions, but just a lot of fun to revisit this character. I've had more and more people talking, talking on everything's been bad since the Code. I pointed this out as a series that, no, this is a beautiful series. If you're in any way, shape, or form in love with comics, this is good. It has nothing to do with the Code. But I think this is, and Cory and I know this from when we worked at the comic stores. You got more guys that are, this sucks. Whatever, that's why you want to live your life. I pour through the previews catalog when it comes out, looking for things for me to spend my money on. Psst, DC, you listening? I read the first King in Black along with the symbiote Spider-Man. Enjoyed them both. Not quite sure. Again, the motivation for Null either has been in previous books. I really don't understand why the Earth warrants this type of attack. But it makes for a good crossover, and if I enjoy it enough, and I am, I'll probably buy the omnibus whenever it comes off. From Image, the Scumbag #1 came out. The world's face rests on the world's worst person on it. This is actually pretty fun. The protagonist of the hero is just a scumbag, doesn't quite know what he's doing. Apparently he has a power that he doesn't quite realize what it is. He's just basically going through life being drunk, being high, trying to, he's a scumbag, so what do you expect? I hope the one thing that the first issue has a lot of disappears, because basically the people that get the scumbag into the storyline know more about him. And it's just really tiring, stay here, and the scumbag doesn't, and he prevails. But we got 5 issues to see what happens, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. And the last, digging out of the archives, we talked a little bit about Star Trek from IDW. I dug out the Star Trek, the John Byrne collection, just because I want to read his take on the Romulans story. This is actually a pretty cool collection. I think it's still in print. Byrne actually, he's kind of simplistic in some of the backgrounds, but he does do backgrounds like he used to. And it covers all his stuff from Assignment Earth, which is a series with Gary Seven, Crew, which goes back to Pike's days, Leonard McCoy, Frontier Doctor. But interspersed in that is a bunch of stuff with Romulans. It starts out the Romulan right before Bird of Prey in the original series, and what characters we're familiar with, and it goes on to Balance of Terror, which is kind of a retelling of the story from just being on the Romulan ship to the aftermath, what goes on, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on. And I'm on the last part, which is Romulan Schism. Oh, by the way, the Klingons are in there too, so don't get too think I'm Romulan centric. But this is just a great collection. It's with John Byrne art. He obviously likes Star Trek. He does a good take on it, and I've just enjoyed it. Like I said, I just had an inkling, and I had to dig this sucker out from about 5 tons of books because it was the one book on the very bottom of the pile. I'm like, well, got to make sure I don't damage anything else going for it. That's pretty much for me for freaking. Cory, geeking. What you geeking on?
If you are a Howard Stern fan,
and I am,
he has re-signed for another 5 years, which the Howard Stern fans online are mad about because they don't like the current version of the show.
Can I give you a little local thing here on
sure.
this? I'm a big fan of the Jason Show, which is a local talk show by Jason Matheson. Howard Stern is his one of the three people that are his idols. The other two being Oprah and David Letterman. He went on, he does this thing at the beginning of the show called Hot Dish, and he did this segment where he absolutely congratulated Howard Stern on signing for his was it a 5-year extension?
Yeah, 5-year deal for the show to be live and 7 years for Sirius to have the archives.
And he went on and talked. He loves Howard Stern. There's a personal story he told an audience, which I don't know if I'm privy to share, but he absolutely loves Howard Stern. He got a call from Howard Stern in one of the lowest times of his life, and Howard basically, just said, "Hey, you're doing a good job. You're doing something that's very hard to do, and you're doing it well." And it kept him going, and he's still on our local network today. You can go to the Jason Show on YouTube and maybe find the segment. But it was a good segment, and as you know, I think you know, Cory, when you're at a certain level of fame, you can pay services to go through all the interwebs and everything, and anytime your name is mentioned, bring it up so that you can review and see what was said. Howard was so touched by what Jason had said about him, about how, if you're still, and so many people they're stuck in the mentality that Howard is a shock jock, and he's nowhere near it. He gives by far the best celebrity interviews of anyone these days. And Howard got a hold of that service, tried to call Jason, and Jason's voicemail was full, and it went to his voicemail.
Oh.
And Jason was aghast. And he cleared his email, and the next day he apologized. Call me. Oh, I can't believe I missed it. And, he was kidding, but half serious. Every time the phone rang, he would stop and look at it. And he's doing this live. He's live television. The next day, a cake showed up from a very exclusive bakery in town that said, "Thank you," from Howard Stern. And while you want to think maybe he was being pranked, this was a damn expensive cake. So, it was just a classy thing that Howard did for a local guy. And he doesn't have to. Howard's Howard. He's got the world by the short hairs, and I'm so happy he's doing what he's doing. But it was just so cool to hear him, reach out and touch. And I don't know if he ever did get in touch with Jason or not. And Jason's not the type of guy to call back, because he has Jason's number and Jason has his. But Jason's not the type of guy to call back and, gush. So just kind of I thought it was a humorous, funny story from a local guy tied into what you were talking about.
And I also think it's funny that, Howard has changed the show. He's in his 60s. He's at home. He's not going to be doing the same show he did 10 years ago. He's not going to be doing the same show he did 20 years ago. He's not going to be doing the same show he did 30 years ago. You evolve over time. And it's one of those things where, well, if you don't like the show now, cool. It's time for you to move on. It's like the people who, Marvel sucks now. And, well, okay, it's not for you anymore. Maybe it's time to move on. But, I'm not as rabid as I used to be, because I'm one of those people. I really like the back office antics and the fact that he had, the staff full of just bizarre, wacko people interacting with each other. They don't push that as much anymore. It's more, Howard talking about his life and what's going on in his head and the interviews he does. It's a different show now. So 5 more years for Howard Stern. I also took advantage of some what they call it. It was Cyber Monday, but it became Cyber Week sales. Joe, the light bulbs in my house are smarter than I am. I got all smart bulbs for all but a few places in the house, because they were fairly cheap, and they're LED bulbs, which save even more energy than the fluorescent ones. And believe it or not, I'm one of those people who I need to use less energy to help save the world. And it is wonderful to be able to just tell my Alexa to turn off lights. Or if I go to work and I'm going to be stuck at work, I could turn on one of the lights so it looks like I'm home. Or I could turn off the lights if I forgot to. Or, just from my phone while I'm at work. Also, the bulbs are multicolored. So let's say I did this last night. Was first time. I'm watching a movie. And this is going to be a movie that's going to be really, really dark. I can turn the lights to like this really dark blue so that if I get up and go somewhere, I don't run into things. But it also is like sitting in a movie theater when they bring down the lights. And I'm sure that, everybody who's listening is like, oh my God, what a nerd. But I'm the guy, I have Alexas in my bedroom and my living room and my bathroom so that I can, listen to the radio or do all that stuff. So I'm sorry, I'm excited about that. Comic-wise, yesterday was Box Day, and in it was the Eternals Omnibus. Now, I have somewhere, in a box somewhere, the first Eternals Omnibus. I believe it is in a box that went to the storage space. So when it was up to $1,200, it's like, well, I could dig it out, but I still want it.
I still want it. How many omnibuses did you get this week?
I only got 2.
Holy cow, I beat you.
Oh, well, you get yours once a month.
Yeah, mine were new. I got the Eternals. I got Justice League International Omnibus 2. I got the Complete Hate. I did decide to buy that from Fangraphics. And there was one other omnibus I can't quite find. Oh, the Road to No Man's Land. So I actually got 4 this month, which was very unusual.
I got the Dead Man Omnibus and the Eternals Complete Saga Omnibus. And the Complete Saga is not the Complete Saga, as I said, but it does have the Kirby Eternals. It has the Peter Gillis Eternals miniseries where the editor got pissed at him and brought in Walt Simonson to finish it up. It's got the Roy Thomas one-shot that was going to be a series in Marvel Comics Presents, but instead they put it out as a one-shot. And then the Eternals that was going to be a series in the 90s, but flopped after a couple of issues that I've never read. And the Dead Man Omnibus, it's the complete story of Dead Man up to the Jose Luis Garcia Lopez miniseries, except for one Dead Man story, which is no longer in canon. Joe, what story that DC pushed a creator to do is no longer in canon?
I haven't read much Dead Man, so I couldn't even tell you.
Carmine Infantino asked Jack Kirby to rework Dead Man, so he gave Dead Man a robotic body in an issue of the Forever People. It is not reprinted in the Complete Dead Man, and I believe that it has been mopied away.
I would put that in the background somewhere.
Oh yeah, in a warehouse.
Yeah, exactly.
Comic-wise, there's that. There is also the MODOK series by Patton Oswalt. Patton Oswalt, the comedian, is writing a MODOK miniseries, and it is so good. It's not funny either. It's very serious. It ties in with continuity. It's almost a revamp of MODOK, making him into a scary villain again, although I have a feeling they're going to, pull the rug out from under him a few times because it is Patton Oswalt. But it was the best MODOK story I've read in a long time, so I recommend you pick that up. And then Batman Catwoman #1 came out. This is how Tom King was going to end his Batman run, but here's the thing that I finally found out. People at DC did not care for his Batman run. The editor who had approved his 100-issue story had left the company, and Dan DiDio did not like the story he was telling. So they were doing everything they could to cancel it, but they couldn't because it was DC's highest-selling book. So the minute it went under sales of 100,000. They were like, okay, we're moving your Batman story to another book because we need to bring the sales on Batman up. Even though it was still DC's #1 selling book, when it dropped under 100,000, they were able to bring in James Tynion IV and do the Joker War story. But Batman Catwoman, the art on it is utterly beautiful. It is a Black Label book. I am glad that it moved to Black Label because they use a little bit better paper and a little bit better printing, and it is a gorgeous, gorgeous book. I will let you know that even though it's a #1 issue, you need to have read the Tom King Batman run to know what's going on, because it does jump around in time a lot. But it is so good. I do not understand why people at DC were like, yeah, this sucks. Yeah, I don't want to print this.
You can't see me, but I'm shaking my head right now.
Doing the thing where you roll your eyes so hard that it may create sounds. And then last, there is a one-shot that came out that is just pure fun from Marvel called Heroes at Home. It is a series of one or two page strips of what Marvel heroes did while they were on quarantine. And I have recently seen the Venom one on Facebook, so I don't mind spoiling it. Eddie Brock is at home, and okay, he's run out of paper towels. So he uses the Venom symbiote to clean this up. And he's run out of this, so he uses the Venom symbiote for that. And the last bit is he's in the bathroom and he's run out of toilet paper, and the Venom symbiote just goes out the window screaming. It's a bunch of little strips like that. It was really funny. And since here in Minnesota, we're not in quarantine, but we may as well be. It was just a nice little thing. The last thing I want to point out is a geeking for me and a freaking for other people. Warner Brothers announced that their entire theatrical slate for 2021 will be premiering on HBO Max. First off, I get HBO Max because I subscribe to HBO. If you subscribe to HBO through your cable, you get HBO Max for free. Second, movie theaters here in Minnesota are closed. Even when they were open, I did not feel comfortable going to them. And if you look at the box office receipts for the U.S., no one feels comfortable going to movie theaters. So Warner has made all of these movies that they have been delaying and delaying and delaying. So they've borrowed the money to make these movies, and they're getting no income at all from them. If they put them on HBO Max, one, if subscriptions go up, they win, because, hey, subscriptions are going up. People will subscribe to see these movies that would have been in theaters. Cool, we're making some money off it. Two, if they do lose money by going to HBO Max rather than being in theaters, they can use that on their taxes to as a business loss, rather than sitting in a vault and waiting where they're just paying interest. They get no income. They get no tax benefit from that. You're going to see more of this because I know that the cheap theater in Hopkins here in Minnesota has shut down. They and it's part of the Man Theater chain. They're like, yeah, we can't sustain anymore. AMC is talking about how they may go bankrupt and they'll either be sold to someone or they may close. Movie theaters are going to be completely different by the time the world finds its new normal.
Hey,
and movie companies have to figure out a way to monetize all the stuff that they have made and is sitting there. And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
I would say play my music, but I can barely talk. Cory, you say it.
Play my music.